Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are right at the midway point of this 2039 season, 52 and 29 record, first place in the National League West. Team is playing pretty well this year as we try to guide these Rockies back to the World Series, hopefully. Probably not going to be a huge amount going on in this episode. We just did our mid-season review at the end of the last episode. Kind of agree with the assessments of some from the Worldwide Scouting Department and where we kind of ended up at the last end of the episode. Whereas if we can find a fifth outfielder, if we can find an upgraded utility infielder, those are a couple areas that we may look for some help over the next 5 weeks or so until we get to the trade deadline. Primary focus in this episode, though, is going to be just simming a couple of weeks up to the first-year player draft, and then we will break then after taking a look at the top prospects who are available for us. Hopefully we can avoid any further injuries over these next few weeks. We've already lost third baseman Jarrett Woods and our fourth starter Noah Schultz for the season. Positively, Anthony Pack Jr., center fielder, should be back in relatively short order, although he's been out for about a month at this point, might need a couple games in AAA to shake off the rust, but hopefully getting Pack Jr., left-handed hitting, excellent defensive center fielder back will allow us to get the youngster Ted Slade, who is proving to be the textbook definition of a 4A player, out of the lineup against right-handed pitching, and also ultimately improve our defense a bit by pivoting Castro back to left field against right-handed pitchers and moving Eric Mokeen to a DH role once Pack Jr. is healthy and well. And as we get ready for the draft, been kind of a rough start to the month of July for our Rockies. Just a 4-6 record over our first 10 games in the month. We do have an early All-Star break this year, so we'll also get to talk about the All-Star teams before we get into the draft. Taking a look at the All-Star Prospects game roster, Ezekiel Caban, A-League pitcher for us. Former second-round draft pick just last year in 2038, now listed as the number 36 prospect in baseball. He was 2-1 in rookie ball for us very early this season with a 2.88 ERA before we promoted him to A-ball, where he's gone 5-0 with that 2.97 ERA. Doesn't necessarily look like Bushy Caban is going to be a superstar pitcher, but certainly looks like he could be a very useful major league pitcher if he reaches his potential. And he's off to a good start in his first professional season for us here with the Colorado Rockies organization. Nils Mensch, if I could click properly, Rodolfo Martinez of the San Francisco Giants organization, also named to the All-Star Prospects game. He's played in 3 different levels this year. But we're more interested in talking about Nils Mensch, the former IAFA signing, number 18 prospect in baseball now. Promoted him to high A at the start of this season, hitting .267 there. Does have 13 doubles, 11 home runs in 292 at-bats. So he's put up a 132 WRC plus and a 2.5 WAR for us. Only 20 years old, so really no rush to move him up through the organization. Marquis Mensch, certainly in terms of his ratings, more than capable of holding his own in high A ball, which the German product has done thus far this year. If we think about promoting him to the Eastern League, looks like he can probably hold his own. His contact and home run power, a little bit below average for that league, but his gap power and his eye are right on target. With the way he's performed in high A ball, would certainly assume that we'll promote him to Double A before the end of this year, maybe more kind of 3 weeks and now in August. He is barely 20 years old, as we said, and given that it doesn't look like he's going to dominate at that Double A level quite yet, probably no rush to promote him there. But between Mensch and Caban, two of the top prospects in our organization named to the All-Star Prospects Game roster this year. Turn our attention now to the actual All-Star Game rosters, where I'm anticipating we're going to have somewhat more representation from our Colorado Rockies. Start things off with our longtime ace, Leo Martinez, final season in his 20s this year, and he is 10-4 with a 4.20 earned run average. Definitely given up more home runs than in the past, having allowed 17 in 120 innings this year, 1.6 WAR. So Martinez has not been as dominant as he has been at times in the past, but still having a good, solid season for us. Bob Russell, the lefty, our number 2 starter, who we signed to an extension last off season, 8-6 record with a 3 ERA, 100 strikeouts on the year. He's put up a 2.1 WAR for us. Between Martinez and Russell, have a pretty nice 1-2 punch with the righty and the lefty at the top of the rotation. And our lefty closer, Adonis Valer, named an All-Star for the second time this year, has 24 saves with a 1.78 earned run average and 49 strikeouts over 35 1/3 innings pitched. Not surprisingly, also have some representation among our position players. Johnny Castillo, former Rookie of the Year, hitting .317 with 28 home runs and 84 ribbies just past the midway point of the season. So another monster year for the former IAFA signing who just turned 25 years old. Anticipate him being a very important part of our team going forward. After putting up a 4 WAR in both his rookie year and his second season, he's already put up a 4 WAR this season as we sit here on July 11th. Mike Castro, another youngster, former first-round pick, now 27 years old, also in his third full season in the majors, similar to Castillo, having another nice year for us, hitting .303, already hits 24 doubles at the All-Star break after leading the league with 52 a year ago and also putting up 47 in his rookie year. 13 homers, 41 ribbies, 16 steals. He's put up a 4.1 WAR for us here just past the midway point of the season. And the last question as we scroll down is going to be whether Mr. Five Tools, Kevin Roberts Jr., our right field, is also an All-Star this year, and he is. So the 3 core members of our lineup, the second baseman Castillo, the left fielder Mike Castro, and the right fielder Kevin Roberts Jr. are all All-Stars this year. Roberts Jr. hitting .282, 16 homers and 54 ribbies. He's also stolen 22 bases and 25 attempts. Put up a 3.1 WAR for us this year. So Robert's going to be turning 31 years old in about 2.5 weeks. Certainly would think that he's at the point in his career where his production may dip a bit, but good to see him having another strong, healthy season for us, and looks like he could be about a 6 WAR player this year if he keeps playing the way he has over the final 2.5, 3 months of the season as he has over the first 3.5 months of the year. And with the 4-6 record in July, 3 losses in a row, 57-37 record for our Rockies is no longer the best in baseball. The Braves now half a game better than us in the standings. Still only 3.5 up on the Padres. Fortunately, they've lost 2 in a row, but they have been lurking not too far behind us throughout this 2039 season. Johnny Castillo, third in the league in homers, tied for the lead, or tied for the league lead in ribbies and third in the league in batter war. Not a surprise to see him as an all-star. Martinez tied for the the league lead in wins. Bernie Barrera just one behind him with 9. And Adonis Valer, the all-star, tied for second in the league with his 24 saves as we prepare for the all-star break with just one game left until then. Quick look at the team statistics, and had our worst full month of the season in June with a 15-12 record. And as we've talked about, things are not trending incredibly here in July. We are 5 games below Pythagorean expectations, so maybe we've gotten a little bit unlucky. 10-13 in one-run games. We've slipped to second in the league in runs scored, but still a very strong offense. Top 4 in every offensive category except for homers and strikeouts, where we're middle of the pack for the National League. Remain a very good base running and defensive team, and first in the National League in runs allowed. The pitching staff outstanding, top 4 in all of the primary pitching statistical categories here in 2039. And we'll finish up this episode by turning our attention to the draft. As we've talked about, we have the final 33rd pick in the first round this year. Even though we flamed out earlier than we had hoped in the playoffs last season, we still did have the best record in the regular season, so we'll be picking right at the end of the draft. A lot of interesting prospects this year. Won't spend a lot of time looking at them before we find out who's still on the board. The pitching pool, at least according to our scout and the high potential players, is relatively shallow this year, but a ton of interesting position players, at least in terms of their potential when we look at what our scout thinks. So odds are there's going to be some interesting players available for us on the board. Certainly the third baseman, Josh Nunn, probably not going to be among them, but the 22-year-old certainly looks like one of those rare players who's ready to make a jump from the University of Arizona right into the major leagues at the age of 22. Extremely strong-looking prospect. Having a monster year this year for Arizona, hitting .328, 22 homers, and 57 ribbies. And he's now been playing in the draft league for about a month at this point, and certainly holding his own in there, although only 1 home run and 3 ribbies and 110 at-bats is not particularly impressive. We tend to think that Mr. Nunn and many of these other top prospects will be gone before it is our turn to pick. Taking a look at the mock draft, Josh Nunn expected to go 13th overall to the San Diego Padres. Would be pretty surprised if he even lasts that long looking at his skill set. And Josh Nunn did go a little earlier than mocked, 9th overall to the St. Louis Cardinals. So, again, looks like one of those rare players who might be able to jump right from college into the majors, although, again, his performance in the draft league hasn't been entirely overwhelming. We'll talk about the 4 recommendations from our scout before we get into the broader look at the pitchers who are available and the position players who are available, and then we'll hopefully turn things over for some feedback and input from the worldwide scouting department on what we should consider doing in this draft. No supplemental picks for us this year, and no third-round pick. We lost that by virtue of signing the infielder that we brought on board this year. Can't even remember his name offhand because, as those of you who follow me know, I haven't been able to be playing as frequently as I've liked over the past several weeks, but hopefully we're in the process of training that now. But the signing of Travis Ramstad cost us our third-round pick this year. So 33rd overall in the first round, and then we'll be picking at the end of the second round as well. So odds are with any of these top prospects that we talk about, now is going to be our only chance to get them. Our scout really likes the third baseman, Jeff June Chrisman. Certainly has a very high ceiling if the 18-year-old reaches his full potential. Don't love the glove, but at 6'2", even though he's listed as a third baseman, I think those ratings would play pretty well as a first baseman. Honestly think, based on this profile, that first base is probably his future. Don't love him in the outfield. If we really don't care about defense, we could play him at third. Maybe he gets a little better there defensively over time. Like the high loyalty and work ethic. Don't love the low leadership, but the bat is what it's all about with June Chrisman, and certainly a very high ceiling if the young prospect reaches his full potential at the plate. Starting pitcher Harry Sanders, 18-year-old out of Hobart, Oklahoma. I think that his stuff and his movement could be above average, slightly above average control. Potentially great four-pitch arsenal, but as an 18-year-old has a lot of work to do. High work ethic should help him execute on hopefully reaching most of his potential. Also has a high baseball IQ. Stamina, certainly marginal for a starter. Looks like a 5, maybe 6 inning guy in a best case scenario. Not great at holding on runners, but think he can throw close to 100 miles an hour when all is said and done. And Fire Sanders looks like an interesting prospect to consider. Right fielder Tim Petre, very good contact hitter and great ability to draw some walks. The gap power and the home run power pretty uninspiring. Not great defensively. The speed is okay, although his instincts on the base paths, whether stealing or base running, don't appear particularly strong. Left-handed hitter is a solid prospect, but hard to put him over Jeff Chrisman based on a first view, at least in my mind. Another right fielder, Freddie Johnson, gap power, home run power, and eye, all potentially borderline world class. Does have extreme development risk, and making contact and avoiding strikeouts are going to be huge concerns for him. Johnson also looking for more money than the other position players we've talked about. Commitment to Union University, not necessarily perfect for a allegedly top-end prospect. Certainly of these 5 players, the third baseman, Jeff Chrisman, just with his very well-balanced bat, some positive personality traits, notably that work ethic, probably stands out to me as the direction we would go. Don't love the lack of contact from Johnson. Don't love the lack of home run power from Petre. And Harry Sanders, although he's an interesting prospect, isn't overwhelming enough to me that I would think that I'd pick him over Chrisman. But again, this is very early stages of this evaluation and decision-making process for us. And we'll start things off with our more fulsome view of the players who are available with the pitchers. Closer Jeremy Van Sickle, the highest ceiling pitching prospect out there. Ground baller who we think can throw 100 miles an hour, outstanding at holding on runners. The lefty definitely has the stamina of a relief pitcher, but think that he could have a potentially incredible fastball and curveball combination if that curve comes around. Stuff could be devastating. Plus movement, average control for the Texas Tech commit. Jeremy Van Sickle with a cool nickname for a pitcher, the Comet. Jason Fowler, starting pitching prospect. Potential 3-pitch arsenal, going to be reliant on that changeup developing. Think he can get close to 100 miles an hour. I think the stuff could be well above average, movement and control in the average-ish range. High adaptability, low leadership among his personality traits. 21-year-old reliever Justin Glenn out of Southern Arkansas. Value really driven by an incredible fastball and a changeup that's not far off major league quality. Already can throw 100 miles an hour. The righty is definitely a reliever. Stuff could be potentially off the charts. Movement and control, both relatively average. Another reliever, Mike Spunk Kirby, Another guy who could have a devastating arsenal with that slider and cutter. Like the high adaptability and baseball IQ, another guy who can reach into the high 90s, we think. The stuff could be incredible, movement a bit above average, and control likely a bit below average for spunk. The last of the real top-end prospects, according to our scout, is Harry Sanders, who we've already talked about. Definitely like his profile, like the personality. Think that Fire Sanders is certainly one of the more interesting prospects among the pitchers that we have talked about thus far. We'll highlight before we finish with the pitchers a few other players who have attracted our attention as we've spent more time with the pool than we're going to subject you to in this episode. Starting pitcher Justin Tank Batzel, going to be very reliant on that changeup developing. Don't see him necessarily as being a first-round guy for us, but like the durability, like the high adaptability and work ethic, think he could be a pretty solid pitcher, but as we noted, going to really need that changeup to have a three-pitch arsenal. Has some work to do with the knuckle curve also, and the stamina not necessarily optimal. Reliever Don Butler, if we wanted to go for a college player who's not far off being major league ready, the BYU prospect known as deranged, very well developed for a 22-year-old. Certainly think he could be a potentially interesting right-handed reliever for a major league team in the not too distant future. Starting pitcher Zach Donovan, don't hate his potential profile, but that personality with low leadership, loyalty, work ethic, and baseball IQ, as well as high financial ambition, and the fact that the word humble isn't in his vocabulary makes Carp a very unlikely target for us. A few other handful of pitching prospects that we'll talk about before we kind of highlight our top players. Phil Gilbert, college pitcher out of Oral Roberts, fragile physically, very reliant on that fastball. Like him, but not a guy who I think is a realistic candidate for us to go after in the first round. Starting pitcher Vic Jimenez, another guy very focused on his fastball and his stuff. Think he can reach 100 miles an hour. Interesting prospect. The stuff could be incredible. The movement and control, both more average to below average for Jimenez. Pat Migdal, 21-year-old out of Santa Clara University, reasonably well developed. Love the stamina and strong ability to hold runners. Only throws 90 miles an hour, but still think he could be a pretty interesting major league pitcher. The movement and control both could be above average. The stuff could be as well, but that's going to be very reliant on that changeup developing. If that changeup doesn't develop, pretty pedestrian arsenal for Mr. Migdal. Starting pitcher Mark Kratzy Santoli, another ground baller who could reach 100 miles an hour. The stamina is very borderline to be a starter, although he does potentially have a 4-pitch arsenal. Some highly regarded college relief prospects, at least in terms of their current development. Jonathan Smith, 22-year-old out of Nebraska at Lincoln. The stuff and movement, major league quality already. Slider and sinker, both devastating pitches. Don't love the low leadership and don't love the lack of control for Big Sweat. Closer Bobby Stevens, another guy who has very impressive stuff, another guy who can reach 100 on the radar gun, another guy whose control for jetpacks looks like a concern. Andy Sullivan, more balanced prospect than some of the others. The stuff not as good, although we do think there's really good potential there. Expect good movement on his pitches, should do a good job keeping the ball down and inside the park with the ground ball tendencies, ability to throw 100 miles an hour. Think his control could be average. Guns Sullivan, the Oklahoma prospect, probably one of the college relievers that we like a bit more. I think it might be still a bit ambitious to consider him with a first-round pick. Starting pitcher Jimmy Warner, low leadership and adaptability. The stuff not all that exciting, although we do think the movement and control could be very interesting. And then Brian Barnett, a 22-year-old starting pitching prospect, fairly well developed, one of the more well developed college starters in this draft, but with the low leadership, loyalty, work ethic, and baseball IQ, hard for me to imagine that Barnett will be the guy I target with my first round selection. I ultimately, at least initially, have pared the list down to 6 pitchers that I'm a bit more interested in among the ones that we talked about. 2 of them not projected to go in the first 5 rounds of the draft. Andy Sullivan, the reliever from Oklahoma, not projected to go in the first 5 rounds, so maybe we can get guns in a couple rounds from now. Similarly, the reliever Don Butler, another college reliever out of BYU, not projected to go in the first 5 rounds of the draft, although as we have definitely seen in this version of the game, doesn't seem like the pitchers get all that much love in the mock drafts. 4 other players that we're most high on as potential first or maybe second round picks all do go in the mock draft. Starting pitcher Jason Fowler is a guy who goes with the 25th pick in the 4th round, so feels like there is a definite opportunity to wait on him, although how far we can wait is certainly a bit of a question. The high-end closer prospect Jeremy Van Sickle expected to go with the first pick of the 4th round, so another guy that we might be able to wait on a little bit if we decide that Comet is the way to go. The college pitcher, college starter Pat Migdal out of Santa Clara University expected to go with the 15th pick in the 3rd round, so maybe a guy that we could wait on till the 2nd round, although realistically, given that we're picking right at the end of the 2nd round and pitchers tend to outperform their mock draft position, probably a guy that we need to take now to give us the highest probability of getting him. Obviously, the only way we can guarantee getting him is to take him now. And then Harry Sanders, who our scout did like, projected to go with the 23rd pick in the 2nd round. So certainly would anticipate that if we want to fire Sanders, now is the time to take him. Turning now to our position players, where there is still a pretty deep pool of relatively high-end potential prospects. Jeff Chrisman, a guy that we've spent a lot of time talking about. Certainly he is on the very short list of the players that I'm interested in, although since I made the point about Union University earlier and Harry Sanders, the guy that we were just talking about, the pitcher, is committed to Bloomsburg. Don't necessarily know that the commitment of June Chrisman to Florida Southern College rather than a bigger D1 baseball program should be something we should factor in a bit to our decision making. We already talked about Freddie Johnson, really big demand, and with his inability to consistently make contact, extreme development risk, and nothing special as far as his speed or fielding, probably not a direction we would go. Right fielder Adrian Nelson, like the high adaptability and work ethic. Again, not special in terms of his defensive skills, pretty poor base running instincts, but do like the durability and a more well-balanced batting profile with solid contact and avoid strikeout ratings, and potentially really interesting gap power, eye, and to a little bit lesser extent home run power. So Nelson, the left-handed hitting center fielder, is at least interesting to me. Already talked about Tim Petre. Think the lack of gap power and the definite lack of home run power probably works against him. So among the 80 rated prospects, the third baseman Chrisman and the center fielder Nelson are the two most interesting to me. We've also got 475 ceiling and 470 ceiling prospects to talk about, though. Center fielder Luke Martinez, a pretty well balanced hitting profile, a lot of work to do with the home run power, but is only 18 years old. Like the high adaptability and work ethic, a bit better range and speed than some of the other outfielders that we've talked about, and do like his durability. Don't know that Martinez will be the guy that we land on, but certainly not the worst prospect I've ever seen. First baseman Cortez Mendoza. Don't love the low adaptability and work ethic. Switch hitter with a potentially solid bat that could be above average at everything is interesting, given his defensive limitations. Probably truly a first baseman, although he could play third base. Ultimately think I probably like Chrisman a little bit more than Mendoza for guys with somewhat similar skill sets. Couple of catchers also. Sean Simpson, very average looking defensively as a catcher. Do like the high work ethic, don't love the low leadership. Really good contact hitter. Everything else about his profile, batting wise, is kind of meh. Isaiah Wilson, another guy, pretty average-ish defensive profile, below average arm. Do like some of the personality traits. Another guy with very good contact potential. Everything else pretty uninspiring. The next tier of prospects down starts with a catcher, Zach Gresser, another guy pretty average defensively. Really like the home run power. I think that Gresser is going to strike out an insane amount and struggle to consistently make contact. Third baseman, Eddie Johnson, pretty versatile player defensively, at least right now. He can have some level of skill at all of the infield positions, although don't know that you'd really want to be playing him anywhere except for first base. Pretty well-balanced batting profile. Think he can be above average in everything. The gap power, home run power, and eye could all be well above average if he fully develops, but that, of course, is the challenge. Shortstop, Brian Large, really good contact hitter. Everything else kind of average-ish to below average, not great speed, respectable looking defensive player. And then left fielder Nesty Valdez, not that great defensively, okay speed-wise, eye, home run power, both potentially outstanding. I will probably be scared away by the lack of contact in the strikeouts, although I know this is a profile that some of members of the Worldwide Scouting Department are more willing to experiment with than I tend to be. There's also three college players with less high ceilings, but certainly higher floors than most of the guys that we've talked about that I'd also like to address. Luis El Capitan Escobar, a pretty interesting third base prospect out of Cal State Fullerton. The range only okay now. Do really like his arm at 6'4". He could definitely be a very good first baseman defensively, although the arm certainly wasted a bit there. Speed and base running instincts are okay. But the bat, potentially pretty interesting. I think his contact could be average, and the gap power, the home run power, and the eye could all be above average. The demand of $1.1 million, certainly not frightening. So El Capitan is a interesting guy, at least in my mind, to consider. Another college infielder, first baseman Ernesto Magalan. 6'1", really only a first baseman. Could also be a left fielder. Other than that, he's a first base, left field DH type. The East Tennessee State University product. We think he can be a bit above average in everything offensively. Honestly, not sure if the bat will ultimately be special enough to justify a DH slot for him or a below average first base slash left field type of role in the lineup for him. And the final position player I'll mention, second baseman Mario Manriquez out of UC Riverside. Guy who looks like he could play just about anywhere in the infield, although he's certainly not looking special defensively. Could also play left field. Manriquez, though, pretty interesting bat. I think the gap power, the home run power, and the eye could all be above average, average-ish contact. Only 21 years old, so young for a college junior. Definitely time for him to develop. Like the high leadership and adaptability, and think that Manriquez is certainly someone to consider as well. And there ended up being 9 position players that we ultimately put on our short list to most strongly consider. And again, that can obviously change based on additional work that I'm going to do and feedback from the worldwide scouting department on maybe some people that I underestimated. Interesting, all 9 of these players are expected to be off the board by our next pick if they weren't already expected to be off the board at this point. So given that we do think pitchers will probably be picked a bit more often than mocked, it's possible that a player or two on this list will fall to us in the second round, but certainly not something that we're going to be expecting. The shortstop Brian Large is the one who gets closest to our pick. You may remember we're supposed to pick 34th in the second round. Brian Large expected to go in the mock draft with the 33rd pick in the second round, so supposed to come off just before our next pick. As I noted, like the contact, like the defense, everything else about him is relatively uninspiring. Hard for me to see him being our first round pick with the way the rest of this pool looks. Third baseman Eddie Johnson expected to go with the 25th pick in the second round. Do like his balance, although with the bat, although we don't necessarily love him defensively anywhere. Another guy who is expected to be gone by the time we make our next pick. Can say the same thing about the first baseman Cortez Mendoza, who's expected to go with the 18th pick in the second round. Luke Martinez, the center fielder, expected to go with the 10th pick in the second round. So another guy who almost certainly will not be around the next time we are getting ready to pick. Like the durability, solid outfield range, some positive personality traits, and the gap power in the eye are both pretty attractive for Luke Martinez. Mario Manriquez expected to go with the 12th pick in the second round. Mentioned that we are pretty intrigued by his bat. Left-handed hitting guy who can play a number of infield positions is certainly an interesting option to consider. The 6th and final of the 9 players that we're still considering who's expected to go in the second round is the third baseman Luis Escobar out of Cal State Fullerton. He's expected to go with the first pick in the second round. So feel like it's almost guaranteed that if we want El Capitan, we're going to have to pick him now. The final 3 players that are on our short list are all already expected to be gone in the mock draft. Adrian Nelson was projected to go with the 32nd pick in the first round, so he was expected to just come off the board before we picked. The left-handed hitting center fielder, certainly a pretty interesting bat, some positive personality traits. First baseman Ernesto Magallon, expected to go with the 26th pick in the first round. One of the most well-developed bats in this draft, although his high end, if he reaches his full potential, not necessarily as high as the high end from some of the other prospects. And then, not surprisingly, Jeff Chrisman was expected to be the 11th pick overall, so certainly almost no chance that he lasts till our second round pick. I think as I think about the position players, Chrisman, who was projected to go 11th overall in the draft, Adrian Nelson projected to go 32nd overall in the draft, and then Luis Escobar, who's expected to go with the first pick in the second round, just a few supplemental picks away from where we're picking right here at the end of the normal first round picks, are probably my three favorite position players at this point to consider, and certainly would not anticipate that any of them will be on the board in the second round for us to get another crack at. Two guys that we're certainly not going to consider taking with our first pick, but I will show to the worldwide scouting department just in the interest of being fulsome. Both top 10 in the draft pipeline, two guys that we haven't talked about. One is the starting pitcher, John Smith. The lack of control there definitely has him on my do not draft in the first round list. Another starting pitcher, Bryce Wagner, known as Luscious Luke. Lefty, really like the stamina, good at holding on runners, but just don't see him having real high-end potential. I think the lefty could certainly become a useful major league starter if he reaches his full potential, but would rather go with a higher ceiling type of prospect with our first round pick. So if the worldwide scouting department has thoughts on how we should approach this draft, would love to hear them. As I noted, only 2 picks before the end of the fourth round. So the hope is that maybe we get 2 guys that we've talked about at this point. Although, as I noted, the position players that we talked about most detailed, all expected to be off the board before our next pick. And certainly anticipate that in the second round, some of the pitchers that we preferred could be challenged to acquire as well. But we'll worry about the second round pick after we've made the first round pick, and that is what we will be focusing on in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.